us, and it's just great to have you on here, Judy.
Hello, how lovely to be here. What a treat. What a treat to talk to you sitting there in Edinburgh with your Scottish accent.
Well, what can I say?
Let's chat.
Let's chat. Let's chat. Good idea. Good idea. So, obviously you're an actress and you've did lots of things over the years. I mean, you've worked in horror, comedy and stuff like that. And I mean, it's like, you obviously went to drama school to study acting and that. But I mean, before you got into like the horror and the comedy, the films, I mean, you did some theatre, didn't you?
Yes, I went to college. I went to drama school and was there for 3 years in London. And then what happened in those days is you habitually would write round to all the rep theatres, which were really thriving in those days, in the 60s and the 70s. They were thriving, and they had they were able to give 3 or 4 equity cards away to new members. If so, you'd audition for them, they'd choose you to be a new member, and that way you'd get your equity card. And I auditioned for 2 or 3, and I got my favourite one, which was Bristol Old Vic. They gave me you were acting ASM then. You walked on, you understudied, and you did a little bit of stage management as well. It was a fantastic experience, and that's where I started with this particular job. I went traveling all over the world I even played on Broadway. We went all over the United States, we went all over Canada, we went all over Europe, and all over Israel with 3 Shakespeare plays, which was an amazing experience for a young cast of actors, really. It was a fantastic experience, and it was huge fun. It took about a year, and then after that, I came back to London and started other work.
You know what? That must have been a real thrill for you, especially going to Broadway, and that must, it must have been some feeling just knowing that you were there in Broadway, but to be not just to see a show, but to actually be in a show. I mean, that
was amazing. Every night going in through the stage door was amazing. The trouble with it being my very, very first job, I thought this is what happened. You were an actress, you went to Broadway. This is how it happened. But it was huge fun. It was huge fun. We had quite an interesting time, particularly topical now with what's been going on with the Beatles, but we had Jane Asher in the cast. And her boyfriend Paul McCartney would come over and see her, and she had her 21st birthday party there, which we went to, just the company and her mum and Paul. And so it was a very sort of 60s thing, but it was also wonderful to think back on those days. And now we're hearing a lot about what the Beatles were like and when they were breaking up, and it brings back the times. Well, I actually spent some time with Paul in my dressing room because Jane was on stage a lot, so he would just come and chat to me and some of the other people, some of the other girls actually. And so that was a very 60s thing to be doing.
Very good. So when you think back then, when you had Paul McCartney in your dressing room, did it not seem at the time quite surreal? I mean, the Beatles were huge then, weren't they?
Yeah, they were huge. They were huge. They were so huge in this particular instance that Jane would go on stage. She was playing Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, and she would get death threats every night from people which was terrifying for her. And the police literally, I mean, it doesn't seem credible now, but the police had to hold the crowds back while the cast, we went into the stage door because there were so many screaming crowds at the stage door. And actually he wasn't there. I mean, he just came for her birthday. He wasn't there all the time. He was doing his own thing. But the crowds were there all the time. The crowds were there to see Jane, but also hoping to get a glimpse of Paul McCartney. It didn't seem particularly surreal at the time because I think, like I've just said, you thought this sort of thing happened. When he was sitting with his feet up in the dressing room, chatting away perfectly normally, entirely lovely. And it didn't really seem surreal. It's only in retrospect does it seem crazy.
What's really funny as well, with you saying that, with being such a really nice person, obviously people, especially if you get fans of like groups like the Beatles or the Stones or Queen or whatever, And it's like, I mean, a lot of them look at them like they're gods, you know, it's like they're musical gods, but I suppose when you talk to them, they're just normal people at the end of the day, aren't they? It's, you know, and having a good chat with
They're
them.
normal people. I think you soon lose that if you get to know somebody who is that famous. I think you tend to lose that patina of you know, being overwhelmed, I suppose. I met lots of famous people in my time, and generally they don't overwhelm you. Not once you get through the you know, the outside and just chat normally.
And you know, talking about famous people, obviously, I mean, you got into film, and then I think one of your first films was in a film with Gregory Peck, wasn't it?
It was. It was. It was my first day's professional filming, and I can't claim to have achieved anything because I was just sent along there like an extra with Janet Key, actually, another actress who was with my same agent, and she had been asked to send a couple of girls who could be students, and so we went along, and we did nothing really. We had a line each, but it was cut. But we spent the whole day in a lecture room with Gregory Peck and Anne Haywood, who was his love interest, I think, in the film. But it was just amazing to see him again. It was amazing, and what amazing! I mean, he's real Hollywood. He was gorgeous to look at. He was exactly as you think, and we were a bit gobsmacked, I must say. But also, what was interesting for me, and we were quite passionate as actors, very important, you know, we took our craft very seriously, and to watch Gregory Peck do every single take differently, dynamically, and it was just fascinating. And watching him work was fascinating, which did surprise me because he had a reputation of being quite sort of sane, really, not the most versatile of actors, but watching him work, he was incredibly clever.
What was he like as a man? I mean, did you get the chance? Obviously, you spoke to him, and did he seem like a nice guy?
Yeah, a lovely guy, but he was always going to be a lovely guy. We didn't really talk to him much. He came over when at the beginning of the day, and we were sitting in our seats as students. He came over and shook our hands and said hello. You know, I think these famous people, they say things like "Hello, I'm Gregory Peck," and you sort of, your eyes sort of pop out of your head. Hello, Gregory. My name's Judy. But you know, yeah, he was lovely. He did seem very nice, but that's all he did. He came and shook our hands, and then got on with the job.
Yeah, good stuff. Good. But then it's like, I mean, once as the years went by, I mean, you started getting more parts in different films, and especially in horror films, you know. And I mean, obviously, you've been in quite a few horror films. Did you fear that you would maybe get a little bit typecast, like what Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing did in horror films? If you were in a few, or I mean, did you want to do more different things? Or
it never would have occurred to me at the time that I was getting typed. But I didn't have leading parts in my horror. I did one or two horror films, but not in the Hammer horrors. Yeah. And I wasn't worried at all about that, because you just did the job you were asked to do, or you went along to an audition. What happened is you just be sent for an audition for anything. I mean, anything. It could be a sort of children's foundation thing. It could be a corporate video. All of these things you might want to do, or you might not. And you just said yes. Oh yes, I like the look of this. I'll do it, or not. So you did it. I've said this in many interviews. I was really just a jobbing actress who just went from one job to the other, and I never ever thought, oh my goodness, I'm into horror films. You know, I love doing horror films. It's lovely. I mean, I love doing filming, so nothing to worry about.
I loved anything which Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee were in. I mean, I actually just about had the chance to work with Christopher Lee years ago, but fell through for some reason, which was a shame, because I mean, apart from wanting to work with him, I mean, I wanted to meet him because I've heard he was a lovely man, a great man as well. But I mean, Peter Cushing especially, I mean, what was he like? I hear other people talking about him saying he was lovely. He was a lovely man.
He was lovely. He was the two separate words of gentleman. He was a very, very civilized, very, very intelligent and very quiet man. But when I came to work with him, he had not come to the first film I was in. He was supposed to be in that. Ralph Bates got his part because his wife, Peter Cushing's wife, was so ill. He had to withdraw from Lust for a Vampire. But he came back to do Twins of Evil after his wife had died. So he was very, very drawn, very gaunt, very quiet, definitely bereaved. You could tell he was sad. He was sad. And he was very gentle to talk to. And a lot of his care in our scenes was towards me. Am I going to be all right? You know, I get thrown on the ground in front of him. Would that be all right? Everything was, you know, his concern was solely with me, strangely. And he was just delightful, really. But as I've said quite a few times, as soon as he got into character, he changed, and he was terrifying, which made it very easy to work with him because he was a really, really terrifying character in Twins of Evil. And so he was that juxtaposition, actually, in as far as he was a gentle, sweet, quiet, caring, very much caring man. And then he was this absolute monster as soon as action was called.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, apart from being in some of the, like when he plays Frankenstein, in his films, I mean, I liked him in Star Wars as well, how he becomes this evil kind of dictator looking guy who, you know, epitomizes evil, you know, and it's like, then you hear the other actors talking about him saying, oh, he's a lovely man, just such one of the gentlest, lovely. That just shows you how much of a fantastic actor he was, you know. Must have been a thrill for you to work with him.
It was, and even more so in retrospect, really, because, you know, as I said, I was just an ordinary jobbing actress, and I took it in my stride, really. I did think he was remarkable. I thought he was remarkable. He didn't have this cachet that somebody like Gregory Peck had. To me, he wasn't the same sort of film starry person. He was a film star, but he was a film star, a niche film star, if you like. But I think he was an incredibly good actor. He was a fine, fine actor, and that's wonderful to work with. So it was a joy, really. In spite of it being frightening, it was a joy.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But then you went on to do some comedy, and then you did the Confessions of a Window Cleaner. I mean, what was it like working on that? Doing a different type of genre, obviously, to the horror thing. Did you enjoy working on that?
What will Robin say if I say, well, I was doing two films at the time, roughly the same time, both very similar. Percy's Progress, in fact. I was leaping in and out of these young men's beds all the time, both in Elstree, both in sound stages in Elstree. I mean, I'm not sure that my memory serves me right, but I have this picture that I literally was going from one bed to another. To, you know, these two rather lovely guys, and I was leaping into bed with both of them. There were things slightly uncomfortable about Confessions of a Window Cleaner. I had, after the filming, I knew Val Guest. I'd worked for him before. He's a fine, fine director, actually. He's a very classy director, and I had worked for him before. But I don't know if I've ever said this before, but after my filming there, I got some really horrible phone calls, you know, just dirty, horrible phone calls from somebody on that set. And they could only, and you know, in those days you didn't have mobile phones, so you only had your house phone. Yeah. So you'd be in your house, and quite often you'd be answering the phone thinking your agent is going to ring you up with something. Every phone call was valuable. But I started to dread the phone going because there was this horrible person on the other end, and he'd clearly been on that film set from some of the things he was saying. So that left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, really. But whatever.
Yeah, but even though it was a telephone,
I don't think I've ever said that before. I think you've got a scoop there, Bobby.
Listen, honestly, I've heard a lot of things, you know, from different people, but I mean, for something like that to happen, that It must spook you, especially if you maybe knew the person on the set, and if it was another actor.
Yeah, you didn't. You must have met him somewhere. That was horrible. That was horrible. And it went on for quite a while. And yeah, I don't think I called the police, but there was nothing much they could do about it. But that was probably the only unpleasant experience when you hear about all the Me Too things that go on, and all the people, and a lot of actresses saying unhappy things. That's probably the only unhappy thing that happened to me when I was working the whole of my life, really. So that wasn't as bad as it could be.
Well, it's like, I mean, obviously things which have happened, especially in Hollywood the past 5 or 6 years, it's bound to have happened to a lot of young women, like the court cases and stuff. So it's like a lot of things have maybe just been made hush hush and so forth. And it's obviously it's been a common thing, I think, Judy.
I think so. Not so common with me. I mean, I didn't, it was just the one out of many years. That was just the only thing really that wasn't good. Yeah,
but apart from that, it's like, what was it like working with Robin?
Well, strangely enough, I'm not quite sure of the chronology. I suppose I could look it up, which came first, which did come first, because I worked with him. The first time I ever worked with him, we had the same agent. She was a fantastic agent. She's getting quite a bit of publicity now, actually. She's got her own Wikipedia page and things. And she was a really, really classy agent to have. If she offered you a contract to go with her, you jumped at it. She had all the young people you could possibly think of: Malcolm McDowell, Richard O'Sullivan, Judy Geeson, Susan George. They were, all these, and Robin, that was one of them. And I had worked with him before on, I think, a corporate video. I think it was for the army or something, recruitment for the army. And there were 4 of us in this video, and we went boating or bowling or something. I can't quite remember it, but actually I met him more recently, because I met him lots now because of the Misty Moon. But I met him more recently when he reminded me of that. And that was the first time we worked together, because our agent would have put us together on that. Then I worked with him on, which one came first though? I worked with him on the Flesh and Blood show for Pete Walker, cult director Peter Walker. And then actually I've got a list here, so I can sort of tell you what it was, but Flesh and Blood show, and no, it was, I think Flesh and Blood show came later. Robin, who remembers everything, would remember how it was. But anyway, I worked with him at least 3 times. It was fun. He's always fun. The character you see in stand-up, he does wonderful stand-up, I must say. Really good stand-up. The character you see around the place being funny, that's how he is to work with. He's very good value working-wise. He's not a moody guy at all. I mean, he probably is a bit of a moody guy underneath it all, but you never see it.
Yeah, he seems quite a cool guy, actually. He seems like a guy you could have a laugh with. It's like a really good laugh.
He's definitely, if you get a chance to meet him, or come to any of his shows, probably, down in London. He does stand-up shows,
Oh, man. It's like, I mean, he seems like the type of guy that could tell you a few stories.
That's what he does. He tells stories. He exaggerates some of his stories, and he does a 2-hour show, which is very, very good value. It's very funny.
Oh, fantastic! But I mean, when I think of like Robin Asquith, I mean, I think of obviously a lot of the TV shows in the 70s, especially. And I mean, I remember watching him in things years ago, such as Bottle Boys and things like that. But it's like when you think of like the 70s TV shows, you think of things like The Professionals, The Sweeney, and Citizen Smith, and shows like that. And you've appeared in those shows. I mean, what was like working on those different shows? I mean, you were working with some really, really talented guys there, like especially Martin Shaw, Lewis Collins, and Robert Lindsay. So I mean, what was that like for you as well? Was that good?
Fantastic. It's funny you should point that out, because I think of all the pleasures that I got from working as an actress, it would be from the working with fine actors. I've worked with so many fine actors, but so many of them. Robert Lindsay is right up there, obviously. He's an incredibly versatile and clever actor. And not just in Citizen Smith. He was brilliant in Citizen Smith, but he's done a lot of serious theatre, so he's a fantastically good guy. Lewis Collins is just so gorgeous. And in my bit, he had to lift me up and carry me. So that was nice. Everybody liked that. And all my friends were jealous. Martin Shaw's a fine actor too. Yes, no, definitely. When I did my Sweeney, it was with Lee Montague, who's a fabulous actor. And we got very friendly. And also, of course, with Dennis Waterman, who's another one who was with Hazel Malone, that agent. Dennis Waterman, I've always felt, he was a child actor, Dennis Waterman. I've always felt he was an underrated actor. I think he's a fantastic actor. And I've always thought he was underrated because he's another one. There's several actors. It's very much like Richard O'Sullivan, who's a brilliant actor, underrated because they think he can just do that light comedy, but he can do everything. And Dennis Waterman's another one who makes it look so easy that you tend to think, well, he just finds it easy, but he's a terrifically versatile and clever actor. I'm completely looking back at my life, which is what you're doing. The actors that I've worked with are the high point. They're the pinnacle. The actors and the actresses are the high point, really, of when I look back. It's just so wonderful to have rapport and work closely. You do work very closely. You know this, Bobby. You go into rehearsal and you spend several days or weeks getting to know people really closely, and that's what you do. So it is. It stays
really,
with you.
And it's really interesting as well because with me pointing out those actors to you, and you mentioned Dennis Waterman, who I absolutely love. I love Dennis Waterman. I mean, I remember him in the Sweeney, but honestly, I love Minder. Minder to me, even now, even though it looks a little kind of dated, to me, it's still one of my favorite ever shows. And Dennis Waterman was fantastic in it, absolutely brilliant. But like you said, I mean, he's just one of these actors. It's like you're right. I think he was kind of like underrated, but I always thought he was a fantastic actor. I always thought he was great, and he delivered. He seemed to have delivered on the day as well, and you could see it. And he just kind of struck a chord with me. And obviously working with George Cole, which would have been fantastic as well.
Yeah, yes, of course, another fine actor. That's exactly right. Terrific.
And it's funny because George Cole spent a lot of his youth in Edinburgh as well, because he was under the guidance of Alistair Sim years ago.
One of my favourite actors, Alistair Sim. I mean, really, he was. I mean, not many people remember him now, but he was just such an amazing actor.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, you've done a film lately. Well, was it last year, 2 years ago? Was it The Haunting of Margam Castle?
Oh, yeah.
And you made an appearance in that. Now, I want to see this film, Judy, so it's like, is it on like Amazon or that I could watch it, or is it on any streaming site?
I think it was on Amazon. I'm not sure. I think you'd have to research it. You can buy it, of course. It's probably produced now, but you can buy the DVD, but also, I don't know where it's being distributed. It was, I think, on Amazon. I'm not sure now. I should know that. I should have done my homework. But you'll have to research it. It can't be that difficult. You just type it in and they'll tell you. There you go. It's had mixed reviews, but lots of people have loved it. And I don't do very much in it at all. I don't do anything. In fact, the wonderful director, Andrew Jones, who's unbelievable. He's unbelievably prolific. He keeps churning these things out that go straight to DVD, and they're very exciting to work on because his method of working is very efficient, but he's lovely. The whole setup is professional and lovely. And he sent me a script, and I found one of the lines, which was quite complicated. I mean, I only had about 4 lines. I think I had about 6 lines, Bobby. And I practiced them and practiced them, walked around the house, practiced them. There's one I just couldn't get. I don't know why. I couldn't get it. So I wrote to him and said, Andrew, do you mind if I drop this line? So I dropped it. And so instead of having 6 lines, I had 4 or 5 or something. And so that's how I approach things these days. But it was just a little part. But on the trailer, he uses my voice, the voice of what I'm saying. It's just a soothsayer. I'm sort of a bit random. I step forward and give them a dire warning not to go to the castle. Don't go to the castle. It's dangerous. That's my line. And Caroline Munro's in it, and she plays a very blousy publican, female publican. So she's playing a very different part from me.
You know what's really funny? My dad, he absolutely adores Caroline Munro.
Oh, well, he needs to get to the back of the queue, doesn't he?
He absolutely adores
that.
Alone.
I don't think he's alone in that.
And it's funny because, I mean, obviously with me being quite like friends with Pauline, I mean, there's now and then, I think it's like you guys get to meet up every now and then to different conventions and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, today, but I think Pauline is there and Caroline is at Darkfest, which is a great convention in the East End of London, in the Genesis Cinema. It's happening right now as we talk. I've done it for 2 years, but I decided not to do it this year because I'm a little bit COVID aware. I don't want to be crammed up too much, and it is quite crowded. And I thought this was one too far. I've done a couple of conventions in the last month, and I thought I don't want to push my luck. I am being very careful, you know, who I mix with and what I mix with. So I didn't do Darkfest, but Caroline and they're there, and
it's always, I think it's important, especially with like what's happening around the world just now, you know, and it's always good to be careful that way as well. So I mean, I'm kind of like that as well. If I'm going to be in an environment, if there's going to be a lot of people, then always wear a mask, you know, just in case, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, that's really sensible with what you're saying. But when you go to these like conventions, Judy, when you get some of these fans come up to you, what's the response from the fans when they see you? You know, what's it like? You know, I mean, big horror fans?
Over the years, I was at one with Pauline recently down in Windsor in Oakley Court, and Madeline Smith. We were there, and that's one when I thought, well, that's probably enough because the people all coming up and giving you hugs and things. They're fine. They're all different. They're all completely different. You can get some young students who are studying British films of the 60s and 70s, and they're much more serious. And you get people who know a lot about it. There is a lot of knowledge there. People write books, people write articles. They're often the people who come and talk to you. They've got an article coming out in a magazine and they want to confirm something. So what is quite interesting from your question, and I've only really just thought about it, is how different the people are. There's also some really lovely ladies who know a lot about it as well. So it's just quite interesting. I love meeting them. First of all, I just can't, you know, I'm just so grateful to them for remembering anything that I do. And also I find them really interesting. They'll tell me things about my work that I didn't know.
And it's like, I mean, I take it's at different age ranges, I guess, like from students to like maybe some older people type thing.
Definitely. A complete spectrum, actually, which is surprising because people out of the business tend to think, oh, you know, it'll be old men who used to watch years ago. But it's not. It's all sorts of people. Young women, young men, you know, all mixes of people.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And you must feel good when you get people coming up to you saying, you know, I enjoyed seeing you in this film, and I thought I enjoyed you in that, and you know, maybe they saw you in theatre and they said that they enjoyed that particular. I mean, it must give you some joy when they say that to you. It
does. Joy's word. That's a really good way of putting it. It does give you a lot of joy. That's what it is. I mean, it's a bit sort of you feel a bit sort of imposter syndrome, really. I sometimes feel I don't deserve their fascination and their interest, But well, I've got used to it now. But at first, when I first started meeting people, I really did start to think, well, you know, I'm not really deserving of all this, this sort of, I was going to say adulation, but I don't really mean that, but just all this interest. And it does give you a lot of joy. I love meeting them. They're usually, I mean, I can't think of anybody who's not been a delight. They're delightful people, all of them.
So see, when you go to these conventions, is there like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of like other actors and folk there. Is there like, maybe you maybe go to a convention? Have you ever been in a situation where maybe you worked on a film with a particular actor, and then without knowing they're at the same convention as you type thing, and you see them there, and you know, has anything like that happened to you?
Yeah, no, it does happen. It does happen, and you don't know. You don't know. You can look them up beforehand. Because there's been a 2-year hiatus because nobody's been doing conventions for 2 years. But actually, it was John Huff who was the director. He's a fantastic director, but he's also the director of Twins of Evil. And it's his 80th birthday last week. So I put a little thing out saying happy birthday to him. And I remembered that I had re-met him at a convention in Birmingham. And he didn't know I was there, and I didn't know he was there. And I went and found him, and we talked, and he kept saying, we should be sitting next to each other, but we didn't, we were. You do definitely bump into them. Of course, the Caroline and Martine, Pauline and Maddie, I see a lot. There's the Hammer connection. You know, we tend to congregate in the same conventions.
So, I mean, we were talking about Peter Cushing earlier. Did you ever meet Christopher Lee? Did you ever?
No, I had nothing to do with him ever, which is a big group. You know, it's a bit of a remiss thing, really, considering my background. But no, I never came across him. I came across him at some sort of drinks dues occasionally, but he was always sort of in the distance and very tall. I don't know whether they were. I don't know. There might have been Hammer sort of variety clubs get-togethers, which they used to do, and they used to invite all the Hammer girls to these things, and he was there, but I didn't really get to talk to him much.
But you know, to me, I mean, it would have just been a thrill to have actually met him. You know, but you seeing him, I mean, it must have been. I mean, he was about 6'4", wasn't he? 6'3", 6'4".
Very striking, very, very striking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Must have been quite imposing, especially if you were working with, like, if you're working on a Dracula film with him. You must have looked very imposing. Now, you did a film with was it Tony Robertson? It was a short film, Joe's Journey, which was obviously it was made from a cartoon, which was to raise awareness towards dementia. I mean, what can you tell me about that? I mean, did you enjoy doing that?
Well, there was an evening this last Wednesday, 3 days ago, in Soho. There was a get-together, a really, really nice sort of cocktail party to show the film. It's a premiere of the film, but also to raise awareness. It's completely to raise awareness of dementia, and this was to promote dementia, but also there's an app that these people wanted to put out. It's called Moments of Joy, and they wanted to put out an app. I'm not quite sure how the app works, but it's to do with helping people with dementia. Tony Husband wrote a book. He's the wonderful cartoonist, really successful cartoonist. He wrote a book when his dad got dementia, which was very successful. And then he did a wonderful cartoon. In fact, I've got it down there, but I won't show it to you now because anyway, he did a cartoon, which is a little story of this man, which is like his dad, called Joe. And he says, you know, I'm going to see my mum, and he goes off, and he doesn't, of course, have a mum, and it's terribly touching. And they asked Tony Robertson to play Joe, and he's the most charming man, Tony Robertson. He played Joe. I played his wife. Didn't have a lot to do. I mean, nobody had a lot to do because it's 4 minutes long, but it's only 4 minutes long. But I love doing it. I was so. I put it out that it's one of the things I've been most proud of doing ever in my whole life. And it was directed by Jason Reed, who's unbelievably clever at all those sort of things. And Tony Husband wrote it, the cartoonist, and Tony Robinson was in it. And we were all together on last Wednesday night, seeing it off and watching the film. And I'm raising a glass to it.
Mm.
So I think it'll be out soon, actually. It's, as I say, it's only 4
Mm.
minutes long. It doesn't take up much of your time.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to see it, though. It'd be really, really nice to see it.
Lovely little film. It's terribly touching.
Mm. Tony Robertson, he's fantastic, isn't he? Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you're talking about actors. You know, I mean, none of us had a huge amount to do. He was just brilliant in his little bit of acting with me. I was obviously worried about him saying he was going out, you know, find his mum. And he was just a brilliant actor. You could tell immediately with his rapport with another actor, which was me. He was just brilliant. It was yeah. So I was very thrilled to do that in my old age.
You're not old, Judy. Still young. Still young. Yeah, but I mean, I'd like to see that as well. I mean, whenever it's
as soon as it comes out, I'll let you know, Bobby. I definitely will. As soon as I think it will be put out. I'm not quite sure where or how. Maybe on YouTube.
It'd be nice to see. I mean, I lost my mum to dementia.
Did you? Yes.
Yeah, about 3 years ago. And I mean, I know what it can do, and you know, it's horrible. It's
everybody seems to have a story. How is your dad that you mentioned earlier? How is he? How's he coping? I mean,
he's coping all right. I think, like, so obviously when my mum first passed, you know, it knocked him back for 6, and it was like he actually had a little accident the day after the funeral, and he was in hospital for a week, which, you know, but then once he got better, and I mean, I kept on going to see him. I was looking after him. I was, you know, cooking his meals, and obviously, you know, doing the thing which I would do, not just for my dad, but like from my friends, if they were like to get them better and stuff like that. My sister would go up as well, and you know, just to get them better. But you know, he was kind of subdued and within himself to leave the house, you know, especially, I mean, once he came out of hospital, he just wouldn't leave the house. He would just stay in his bed all the time, because obviously he was married to my mum for over 50 years anyway. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, after a while, I just kept on getting on at him. And now he's getting out more. He's got loads of great friends. I mean, my dad, he's 84 now. And it's like, you know, I mean, a lot of his good friends obviously have died as well. But he still has some really good pals that are still here. And they keep him going, you know. He's got myself, he's got my sister, and the rest of the family, you know, that kind of like keep him going. And he loves it. He loves when I go up and see him. The only thing is, when I go up and see him, I'm like, Dad, right, no whiskey. I'm not having any whiskey tonight. That's when I phone him, and then he's like, okay, son, no problem. Goes up, bottle of whiskey. I'm like, oh. And I can't say no, because it's the good stuff he's got, you know, and it's lovely. The only thing is, you have a lot of it in the morning. I always have a sore head, you know, but you know,
but it's pleasure to fit you. It's his pleasure to share it with you.
Oh yeah, I mean, me and my dad are close. We're so close.
Yeah,
I reckon
love that.
Oh yeah, we're closer now than we've ever been, and I feel lucky because I actually have friends who, you know, it's like they're not so close with their mums or their dads, you know, and you know, it's like they're not really bothered for them. But I mean, you know, if I could, I'd love my mum back, but obviously it's not going to happen. But my dad, I'm just loving you know, I just love being with my dad. It's just such a
enjoying him and making the most of it.
Absolutely.
It's precious time.
Absolutely. And it's just so good to just like to just spend time with him. When I do go and see him, he's got a lovely wee dog as well, which I normally keep, wee Ben. And you know, he's like, the dog's about 14, but it's got this, it's like it still thinks it's about 4 or 5, you know, it just runs daft. It's mental. He's mental, you know, but yeah, my dad, he's just he would like you, Judy. I know if he met you, he would like you. He's oh yeah, but he's one of these guys who, if you speak to him, he could tell you, like, if you were sitting in the pub with him, he would tell you some of the funniest stories ever. But the funny thing is, he would, I mean, where I'm concerned, he's told me these stories about 1,000,000 times, and I still think they're funny. You know, just each time he tells you them. And the things
Sounds a bit like Robin Astor. Hear the same stories over and over again.
but the thing is, when he tells you the stories, it's like he laughs when he's telling them, and that's what cracks me up. That's what cracks me up. And it's like I always end up leaving the pub with a sore belly just with laughing, you know.
That's so good. That's so good.
But it's good, you know. My dad, he's like he's a funny guy, and you know, he's just, you know, he's like he's, you know, he doesn't take anything seriously. He just, you know, he just loves life. He loves life. He loves people, you know, and that's just how he is, you know. But yeah, it's just
good.
Yeah, well, it's good how he is now, because I have to admit, like when I lost my mum, I thought to myself, you know, it was going to be a struggle with my dad.
Yeah, you got him out of it though.
Yeah, well, I feel good that he is now, and it's like it's just so, you know, honestly, he's just a lovely man. He's such a lovely, lovely man. You know, oh yeah, but and he's always interested about who I'm talking to each week as well. And I told him about you. I'm dying to tell him about this. Well, what I'm going to do is, obviously, once this is all done, I'm going to like show him. So
you show him. You show him. Take it around. Show him.
Well, you know what? It was funny because I was showing him Robert Gillespie's interview, and sometimes it takes my dad a wee while before he actually gets, if he's interested in anything, you know, like for him, because he's like acting, and I mean, obviously likes the old films and stuff like that, but a lot of things nowadays doesn't really, you know, take his eye. He's not really bothered about a lot of things. But you know, I had the interview on with Robert Gillespie, and he was like, the whole time he was just like, just totally focused on it and just listening to him. And my dad, he was like that, you know, that guy really knows his stuff. I says, I know he does, you know. And it was just great. You know, my dad's just into, you know, he likes a lot of the older actors and stuff, and he loves it, you know. But yeah, I'm definitely, I can't wait to show him, like me talking to you. It's just going to be so
What's
fun.
his name?
Well, his name's Robert as well, because I mean, apart from being Bobby, I'm Robert, you know. But his name, his Scottish name for Robert is Rab.
Rab.
It's R-A-B, Rab.
You wouldn't know Rab Butler, but he was a politician in the Conservative Party years ago called Rab Butler.
Yeah.
Rabby Burns. So it's Rabby Burns.
Rabby Burns, you know.
Hello, Rab. You tell him I said hello, Rab.
Oh, will do,
nice
Judy.
You.
But yeah, my dad, he loves watching all the old horror films as well. I remember years ago, he used to like watching all the old Hammer films, and you know, it's like, was it my dad, he was watching something, it was a Ralph Bates horror film actually I was watching one time. It was Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde was watching, and it was where Ralph Bates turns into the lady, and there was my mom, God bless her, she was always, she hated my dad watching anything where it had maybe some nudie bits in it and stuff, you know. And there's a couple of nudist bits with a lady in it. And
Martine, that's Martine, isn't it?
Yeah. And she would just give my dad a hard time just for watching some of these things. Or my dad would watch like Dennis Potter things on the TV, and my mum would just go spare, you know, she'd just go nuts at him. But yeah, just good times, you know. But yeah, but you know, I mean, I love my parents, you know. I mean, you know, I don't know about yourself, Judy. I mean, what was your relationship like with your parents? Did you get on really well with them?
Yeah, I did. I got on very well with them. Yes. My dad was a Scottish psychiatrist, sort of a bit of a cliche, really. And no, I got on very, very well with my parents. Mm-hmm. Yes, they were very different parenting skills to what I have with my girls. I think we've all changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was all good. It was all good.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, obviously, I mean, I don't know about yourself, but I mean, obviously my mum and Dad, they were always like really old school when it come to bringing me up, and we're also really disciplined. You know, like, so we're disciplinarians, especially for like, I mean, one thing I'll say, I was never in trouble. No, years ago, I never got any
You were a good boy.
I was a good boy. I was a good boy. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, you know, because I mean, a lot of my mates, they were just, oh man, they were terrible. But they would try and get me they would try to get me into trouble, you know. I'm like, no, no, no. For instance, we'd be walking along, you know, it could be like a big landing full of doors, you know, people's like front doors. And what they would do is we'd just be chatting away in that, and one of my mates would just spontaneously tap a couple of the doors and run away, and then my other mate would run away, and I'm standing there, then I'd have to run, and then, you know, then you hear the doors open, and I'm like, you know, luckily they've never
You'd
saw
be
me.
the last one. The one they saw.
But luckily back then it was like a really quick runner. But oh god, oh my mates. I mean, they weren't like bad people, but they were just really mischievous. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's kids all over. I mean, I have to tell you the truth. In our little village in Essex at South Ockenden, now we did a lot of that. No, it's called knock down ginger, and you knock on the doors and run away. But I mean, it breaks my heart when I look back, because some of them were very, very old people coming to the door. But we did think it was terribly funny at the time. It's not good.
But I mean, what games did you play back then? I mean, did you obviously you played hide and seek? Did you play did you ever play kick the can?
There was a thing called kick the can, but I can't remember it very well, in front of the house. But we used to play hopscotch and things on with chalk, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago. It was all very old-fashioned. They had village pageants on the green, and you'd learn sort of dancing, and I did Scottish dancing. I've got a gold medal. No, I haven't got a gold medal. I've got a silver medal and a bronze medal for Scottish Highland dancing. And we used to do displays around Essex. We used to wear our sashes and go and do dancing displays. My father got me into that. My Scottish father got me doing Scottish dancing.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Seems extraordinary. But you did ask.
Good stuff. But I mean, you know, it's like, you know, it's really funny. It's like my dad, he always wanted me to, like, my dad, he worked in the docks in Edinburgh. And, you know, I don't know, it's like when I told him years ago that I wanted to be an actor, he'd be like, you know, you sure you're not, you know, nothing else you're telling me, son, type thing. No. But my dad, he would always want me to kind of like work with him. But he got made redundant, obviously, because I think Margaret Thatcher, she was shutting down a lot of the places up here, and unfortunately my dad's work was one of them. But yeah, so, you know, how do you feel? I mean, if you were to go back all those years ago, you know, I mean, acting, was it something that you've always really wanted to do, Judy, or if you weren't going to be an actor, I mean, what would you have liked to have done next as another job?
As another job, I definitely would like to have done medicine, but I did not have the scientific brain or the mathematical brain at all. But I think because of my father and various other people in my life, I've always thought of medicine. Particularly now with the NHS, how they've been with the vaccinations. I've rather revered the medical profession, I must say. And that would have been my choice if I'd been able to do it. But I wasn't. I was always doing a silly acting thing, as opposed to, I could not have gone to medical. I didn't have the academic qualifications.
Right. Well, lastly, here's a wee question for you, right? So, okay, so if it's between theatre, television, or film, what do you prefer?
In looking, I mean, it's difficult now. I will always say film. I love films. I love going to films. I love watching films. I love the collaborative version, you know, all the collaborative thing with films. It would be films. I love all the crew. I love everything about it. But also in retrospect, looking back, walking on that stage is something amazing. I mean, you know, opening night, it's just amazing to. There was a play I did that I had to walk on very early on, throw open the double doors and say something, and I'd give my eye teeth to be able to do that again, I must say. I mean, I couldn't do it now. I wouldn't remember the lines. I wouldn't know what to do, but theatre has come up in my estimation from what I did, because I've always loved films. I love films, the end product of cinema, but theatre comes a close second.
I think it's amazing nowadays with, especially with cinema, how things are, like how the screens are like widened, like it's just everything. It's like the clarity in film, like nowadays, it's really nice, isn't it? It's, you know, but you know, talking about theatre, I mean, I was going to ask you something else. Have you ever done musicals?
You know, I have no musical ear.
Have you not? Well,
so I haven't done musical. You know what I would love to do, Bobby, is pantomime. I would love to be the Wicked Witch in pantomime, but I don't have a singing voice. I mean, they'd have to cover for that. But I'd love to come on and be all that exaggeration. Always wanted to do pantomime, but I can't sing. Never done musical. You know, I think it's quite a good thing in some way. I think it's quite a good thing not to diversify. One of the things I look at young actresses today, and in my day, it used to be actress stroke model written down in the paper. Not me, because I was a trained actor, but I used to get very cross if the newspaper would say Judy Matheson, actress stroke model. I do think if you try to make, if you diversify too much and you're this and you're that and the other, the model, the filmmaker, I just think you don't get taken so seriously. And I'm not entirely sure to be a singer, dancer, actor is a good thing. You would get shuffled off, I think, to do the musicals. Much as I would, no, I just prefer straight acting. I prefer proper straight acting. I do actually prefer it. I love going to musical, right? I love going to musical, but even if I could sing, I would still prefer straight acting.
It's the reason I've asked you that was because, I mean, I've never ever regarded myself as like a great singer or whatever, but I'd auditioned myself. I went to an audition years ago, and it was I didn't realize what the audition was all about. One of my friends says there's an audition up the road in acting school, which I kind of went to, and it was like it was just one of these acting schools. It was like 4 hours a night thing at this place, but although I did go to drama college years ago, and I just used to go there, and I mean, I was at the time I had a little job working as a postman, but then I went to this acting school, and I went and, as I said, I had this audition, and it was for Gypsy, and I've never ever thought I had a great singing voice, and so what happened was they says to me, "Okay, can you sing a song and let us hear you sing?" So, okay. So I started singing Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, and they must have liked it.
That's a good choice.
It was like, honestly, but it was like you had the three people at the table. It was like X Factor, you know, and they were kind of like, you know, obviously they were looking for the roles in Gypsy. So to cut a long story short, I got told I got the lead-in part in Gypsy as Herbie, the agent guy. So I went to the rehearsals, and they gave me the script, and the script, it was like that thick, and it was obviously the songs you had to learn, you had to the script, so you had to learn the acting, the lines and stuff, and you had to choreograph some of the dancing and stuff in it. It was something which I've never ever thought in my whole life I would do, but I did it. And if I think about it now, it kind of gives me a little shiver down my spine, thinking, no, I don't think I could go through that again, you know. But I mean, but that was when I was like younger. But honestly, I've got great memories from it, and the show itself was fantastic.
Well, you did. It came up something like that. It's just daunting. Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, but I tell you, but do you want to know something, Judy? Honestly, it's been absolute joy talking to you. You're such a
It's
fantastic,
been lovely to you.
honestly. I
We
mean,
were
I've always known you're a great actress and that, but to actually chat to you, and I mean, I know, like,
It's nice.
yeah,
Very relaxing. Very
exactly,
nice to chat.
exactly. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's just been
Look
an
forward to seeing it.
ab-
When you've finessed it up.
absolutely, it's just been fantastic, and it's like when you relax and you have a good chat and stuff, it comes out, it comes out natural, and it's just, I think this is going to be so nice. But it's been great
Good.
chatting to you. It's
Good.
such a lovely
Yeah, well,
lady.
thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I want you to say hello from me to your dad.
I will do, Judy. I will do. But
To
listen,
Rab.
to Rab. Oh, I tell you, wait till he sees us. He's
Raise
going
a
to.
glass of whiskey. Raise a wine.
I tell you
Glass of
what, when he
whiskey.
sees us, he is going to be so overjoyed. You do realize that, don't you?
Good. Give him my best.
But
And we'll see each other on Twitter, no doubt. And I'll
absolutely,
see the stuff.
absolutely. But
There
I
we are.
mean, there'll be times I'll be down, like in London and stuff like that, and I'll give you a little